Greetings of the day, students. Welcome to the next lecture in the series. Let us continue with variance analysis that we started in the previous video lecture. Okay, first of all, let us see material usage or quantity variance. This variance would arise when there would be difference in the quantity as per the standard. So this is that portion of the material cost variance which is due to the difference between the standard quantity which has been specified in advance and the actual quantity used. So formula would somewhat look like material usage variance would be equal to standard quantity for actual output minus the actual quantity into the standard price. Okay. So thus this is the difference between the standard quantity and the actual quantity which is multiplied by the standard price. So in the previous example that we did in the previous video, there we did it same way. So we can see from there that we can have an adverse variance because quantity is adversely affected because more quantity is being used. The standard was set at 4,000 units, but quantity used is 4,300 square feet. Due to which we can see we are having a answer in minus, that is adverse variance. Why do we have this kind of material usage variance? It may be due to use of defective or substandard materials or carelessness in the use of materials. Like if we see tailoring and carpentry, what they need to do, they need to measure each and every part and then they need to cut cloth or wood or such thing. So if they're careless, they may not be very careful while measuring and cutting it. So there can be more of scrap produced by them. Then we can pilferage can even be one of the reasons for the this kind of variance. Poor workmanship means when the person is not trained, he does not know how to save the material. If there is any defect in plant or machinery, then in that case also this kind of problem would be there. Like we know that if our car is not being maintained, it would be using more fuel. Change in the design or specification of the product at the end or at the last moment or after deciding the standard, change in quality of material, use of substitute material if we are not using up to the mark material which is not up to the standard. That's what is mentioned here, that use of non-standard material mixture, yield from materials in excess or less than the standard yield. The expected yield is different. So these are few reasons in that about that. Now let us express this algebraically. The algebraic sum of material price variance and material usage variance should be equal to material cost variance that we have studied in the previous lectures till now. So material cost variance would be equal to material price variance plus the material usage variance, price plus quantity. This is being depicted from the previous examples that we have done. Now let us see how this can be shown graphically, like the analysis of material variances which have been prepared with the figures in the example that we have studied. In this chart, the solid rectangle, this one indicates the cost, that is 4,000. You can see from 0 to 4,000, 4,000 into 5.50. Why? Because 0 to 5.50 till this. The dotted rectangle, till 5. Then dotted rectangle here, it shows your further 300 into 5.5. So why is this arising? This has been arising between the area of the standard cost rectangle and the actual cost rectangle. So shaded areas here shows the material cost variance which have been analyzed into material price variance and material usage variance. The variances are adverse because the actual cost rectangle is larger because it's 5.5 here, is larger in size than the standard cost rectangle. Then let us have a look to one more question on this basis. The standard cost card shows the following details regarding details relating to material needed to produce 1 kilogram of groundnut oil, quantity of groundnut required 3 kg, price of groundnut 2.5 per kg, actual production data, production during the month 1000 kg, then further quantity of material used 3000 500 kg, price of groundnut is rupees 3 per kg. We need to find all the three material variances. First of all, let us see our standard quantity, price, and actual quantity and price, so that we will be using it further in our formulas. Standard quantity is 1000 kilogram of production. Why? Because in the previous page we have seen that they are producing 1000 kilogram of groundnut oil, and quantity of groundnut required to produce 1 kg of groundnut oil is 3 kilograms of groundnut. Means out of 3 kilograms of groundnut they are able to obtain 1 liter of groundnut oil. So for that purpose we can see that the standard quantity is 1000 into 3, that is 3000 kg, and the standard price is given as 2.5 per kg. Actual quantity is used as 3500 kg. As you can see, it is greater than the standard, so we know here only that the variance that has arisen, first thing variance has arisen, second thing the variance has arisen is going to be adverse. Reason is that because the actual is more in terms of quantity as well as in price. Price is 2.5 per kg here and 3 per kg here. So let us see the variances. First of all, standard quantity minus standard cost minus the actual cost. So how to find that out? Standard quantity into the standard price minus the actual quantity into the actual price. You can put the values and you will be able to see that there is an adverse variance of rupees 3000. When we move towards price variance, standard price minus the actual price into the actual quantity. So there is a difference of 50 paisa in the prices into 3500. That would give you again an adverse variance of 1750. For material usage variance, standard quantity minus the actual quantity into the standard price. So standard quantity here again is more is less than the actual, so there is an adverse variance of 1250. We can verify it. We can add these two variances, that is price usage and price variance and usage variance both, and we will be able to obtain the final cost variance. And here we can see that it is proving out to be correct. That's what we tried to understand in the previous slides in terms of equation as well as in terms of graph. Now next is classification of further material usage variances. There you have two subdivisions, material mix variance and material yield variance. Material mix variance, this is actually a subvariance, means a further division of material usage variance, arises only where more than one type of material is being used for producing the finished product. The company may be using a mixture of materials which does not comply with the determined standard mixture. So this gives rise to material mix variance. Material mix variance is defined as the portion of that material usage variance which is due to the difference between the standard and the actual composition of material. Like if I give you an example, while you build a wall, what is the component? Your brick, your then water, then sand, then cement. Suppose only four things are being used. Suppose. So in that case, it for this kind of a operation, we will be calculating material mix variance because we are using more than one kind of material there. Okay. Then at the second point, it is like that we will be seeing each and every variance individually. And other part is that we can see it together. That's what we do in material mix variance. So it may arise in industries like chemicals, rubber, where a number of raw materials are mixed to produce final product. One more thing here, that the proportion used, because like suppose sand and cement, proportion of sand and cement to save the cost, and in that case obviously the quality will get deteriorated. Suppose the constructor is using less of cement and more of sand, cost would be saved, but it would be affecting the quality. Okay. So change from the standard mix may be due to the non-availability of one or more components of mix, or due to non-purchase of materials at a proper time. These are the certain obvious reasons. Increase in the proportion of cheaper materials result in favorable mix, and vice versa. The use of more expensive material in larger proportion will result in adverse variances. So how to calculate material mix variance? Revised standard quantity minus the actual quantity into the standard price. And revised standard quantity is nothing but the standard proportion of the total actual quantities of all the materials. Let us see how to calculate it. The formula here is standard quantity of one material upon the total standard quantities of all the materials into the total actual quantities of all the materials. So here is a question for you. This illustration is important. From the following data, calculate material mix variance and also calculate price and usage variance. We are having two raw materials this time, 40 units of this and 60 units of this. Total 100 units at the rate rupees 50 per unit and 40. Actual is a bit different. You can see again it is more. So adverse variance is there. Let us see the solution and other things. You can see maximum all the variances are adverse. A. Now calculation of revised standard quantity, that is 40 upon 100 into 110. Why? Because this is the actual that is being there, so 44 units. For y, we can also calculate it in the same way, but just consider the quantity of y here, so 66. So material mix variance, RSQ, revised standard quantity, that is 44 minus 50 into the standard price. Same way as for y, finally we are able to see that there is an adverse variance. For material price variance, we know the formula here, we can put the values and we are able to see that there is again an adverse variance of 300 rupees. In material usage variance also there is a, though there is no variance in material Y, but overall X and Y together is giving an adverse variance of 500 rupees under usage variance. Then next we have material sub-usage or material revised usage variance. This is again a sub-variance of the material usage variance, and it represents that portion of the material usage variance which is attributed to the reasons other than those which give rise to material mix variance. So thus the algebraic sum of this revised usage variance and material mix variance is equal to material usage variance, and the formula that we will be using for it is quite simple again, standard quantity minus the revised standard quantity into the standard price. Okay. Let us calculate this for the previous example that we have done. When we put the all the quantities in the formula, again we are able to see that there is an adverse variance of 440 rupees. We can total it and check it out that your material usage variance is equals to material mix variance and your material revised usage variance, and it is coming out to be equal. Then next we have material yield variance. It is also a subvariance of material usage variance, and it arises in process industries like chemicals where loss of material in production is inevitable. So while setting standards, the normal or sub standard loss is taken into account. But actual loss may differ from normal or standard loss. So this results in actual yield or output being different from standard yield. So thus material yield variance is that portion of the material usage variance which is due to the difference between the standard yield specified and the actual yield obtained. So standard yield is the output which is expected to be obtained from the actual usage of raw materials. It should be noted that the yield variance as used in standard costing is the same thing as no abnormal loss or abnormal gain in other costing systems. One important feature of yield variance, which differentiates it from other material variances, maybe price, usage, or mix variance, is that yield variance is an output variance while others are input variances. So, in other words, you can say that yield variance represents a gain or loss on output in terms of finished production, while other variances represent a gain or loss on the cost of material input. Okay, its formula can be represented as actual yield minus the standard yield into the standard output price. Here, SOP, that is standard output price, is the standard material cost per unit of output that we have used. Now let us see a question. During the month of May, these are the materials that are provided to us. X and Y are the materials. The total loss is given and the yield is given. This is the standard and this is actual. Actual is again somewhat positive or negative. Somewhat positive because units used are less and the yield is appearing to be more. Let us see. The standard loss is given as 30%. Material yield variance and material mixture variance that we need to find out. Let us see how to calculate. First of all, material yield variance, we can take it with the actual yield minus the standard yield into the SOP, which is coming out to be favorable. The standard material cost per unit can be calculated, that we have used as 50 here by dividing standard material cost by standard output. Then material mix variance by revised standard quantity minus the actual quantity into the standard price, and we can see that it is favorable for material X and it is adverse for material Y. Okay, so in this case standard quantity and revised standard quantity are same because the total actual quantity of all the materials and the total standard quantity is same, that is 100 units. So for that reason it is same. The standard mix to produce 1 unit of product is given here as follows. for three materials, material A, B, and C, and we can see that during the month of July, 10 units were actually produced and the consumption was like this. So we need to calculate all the material variances. So we can see the calculations, all material variances we need to calculate. Let us see certain standard calculations first of all. We can see that actual quantity is 2400 and sorry, standard is 2400 and actual is 2460. Actual amount is 50,000, whereas actual standard is 50 and actual is 52,225. We can see one by one all the variances. Material cost variance is adversely affected. Material price variance is again adversely affected. That is shown from the above table only somewhere or other. Then we can find out our material usage variance, which is again calculated adversely. Material mix variance is again it is favorable, material mix variance, because for A and B it is adverse, but for material C it is favorable. For due to that it is coming out to be favorable. We can calculate revised standard quantities so that we can further use it. You can see material yield variance, which is coming out to be adverse. Material revised usage variance, again it is coming out to be adverse. We can check and recheck all of these. Obviously it will come same, that your material usage variance must be equal to your material mix variance plus the material yield variance, whereas material cost variance is equals to material price variance plus the material mix variance plus the material yield variance. Okay, rest if you have any queries regarding this topic you may write to me. Till then, take care.